How might writing become your pathway to peace and purpose? Let's learn more. How might Welcome everyone to the Faithful Growth Show, where we explore how your career and your faith intersect or influence each other. I am honored this morning to be joined by our guest, who is Carol Ellison, but she is more well known as Coach Carol. Coach Carol is a certified journal therapy coach, and I'm interested in learning much more about that title. And she is also the owner and founder of TWR Café, which stands for the Writing Room. Welcome to the show, Coach Carol.
Thank you for having me. It is an honor and a privilege to be here.
Right. Well, the first thing we always start off with on this show is giving you the opportunity to share about your professional journey. So that'll allow us to learn a little bit about, where you've been and where you're going.
Well, I've always been in the medical field. I've been in the medical sector for over 20 years, and I love being in the medical field because I felt like it was a place for me to do marketplace ministry.
Okay.
So, one of the areas where I felt like my faith was really being ignited in my professional career was I worked at a multi-specialty private practice, and it was a place where I was just the front desk receptionist. I was the first person that people met, and then I was the last person that they communicated with. And this particular practice, um, my faith began to evolve because I worked at a practice where people would get cancer diagnosis.
Okay.
And just I could tell the people that were checking out, I could tell the people that got that diagnosis. It was the deer in the headlight stare. It was the me having to repeat myself because they're trying to process, diagnosis. And me and a coworker had this system set up where I would, with their consent, I would have prayer with them in an exam room and just sort of tell them that this diagnosis isn't a death sentence. Um, and so that was, I think, the most defining moment for me as far as interjecting my faith in my professional career. Yeah.
Nice. Okay. And then how has that influenced how you move forward? Are you still in the medical field, or have you
Yes.
moved
Yes.
beyond that? Okay.
I'm still in the medical field. I'm in the government sector. So I work for a military treatment facility,
Okay.
and it's a different it's a different lane now because now I do the administrative back end. So I'm not in close contact with patients, but I still exercise my faith with a lot of my colleagues. They know that when and in the government sector, even right now, there is a lot of turbulence. And so people know where to come to when they need a prayer or when they need an encouraging word. They know where to come to. They come to my cubicle. So it's just
understood. So
that's
you used a term, and just for some of our listeners who may not understand what that term is, you mentioned marketplace ministry. Can you define that for our viewers in your own terms?
so God actually disclosed that to me.
Okay.
Because I, I grew up in church,
Mhm.
and you always had a sense that the God encounter was only in the church, like in
Yeah.
the four walls, But me becoming an entrepreneur, God explained it to me. You are, and really, God goes with you everywhere. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Everywhere you go, there should be an encounter where you're not, whether you're saying it audibly or just with your action, you represent God, right?
Yeah.
As a believer. But there are just interactions and things that make God tangible. And so me becoming an entrepreneur, it made me realize that this is ministry, but just in a different lane, in a
Okay.
different avenue. It's not, you know, the church within the four walls.
Right. Okay.
Marketplace ministry is church in the business sector. It is, building relationships and all the things that come with having a relationship with God in the church. It's just you're having it at boardroom,
Mm-hmm.
at networking opportunity, and it's still a way to introduce God. So
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes with this on the show, we never know who's listening. I think this is an opportunity just to share and help others learn about some of the terms that we use and why we use them and what they mean. So thank you for sharing that. You mentioned a few times entrepreneurship. How has faith played out in your entrepreneurship journey?
so my entrepreneur journey started well before I actually started a business.
Okay.
I was a women's ministry leader for about 10 years. And I had been leading women, I won't say a private, but a small group of women. And we were affectionately known as the women at the well.
Okay.
We would meet at a local water spot, and every week we would have like discipleship studies, we would have prayer. It was just a beautiful community that would gather together of women. And this went on for about 2 years
Wow. Okay.
consecutively. And then the pandemic. So we couldn't meet physically. So we met on Zoom. And I would do Priscilla Shire discipleship studies. We would go through one and they would say, okay, let's do another one.
Yeah.
Hey, let's do another one. So I did that all during the pandemic. And it got to the point where my computer would not hold the load
Wow.
of minute. And my computer would literally shut off. Right. So when I got back on the Zoom, the women were praying for me. And one of the leaders in particular, she prayed and she said, from this point on, you're not going to do Priscilla Shine.
Mm,
You're gonna do your own.
nice.
And I thought to myself, I don't know about that. But every time from that prayer in that moment on, every time that I would try to go back to Priscilla Shire,
Hmm.
my computer would shut off.
Oh, wow.
It was like, guys, I said what I said. Right. And so I began to build my own courses.
Okay.
And through the same group of women, I vetted my coaching courses and all that God had put in me. And they were so transformed by this experience that they seeded into me starting my own business.
Wow. That's amazing.
And that was God's way of telling me this is marketplace ministry. This is the essence of what it is. And it was because those women sold in me because I just love to do it, because of the joy and the passion of coaching and being a women's leader. But this was definitely a moment where I realized, okay, these are women that are sewing into me to build something that God wants me to do. So,
Yes. Yes. I applaud you for paying attention to what was being said to you and the actions that followed that. I have a journal myself, which focuses on active listening for hearing what God is saying to you and using the active listening technique in your faith walk. Because a lot of times we don't hear because we're not paying attention, right? And even when we hear and we're like, oh, that wasn't God, he's continuously saying, hey, nope, it was me. It was me. Right. Right. Just confirming that. So yeah, definitely applaud you for that. Tell us about your newfound title, certified journal therapy.
Okay. So I'll start with why I actually just started to lean into journal. So when my husband and I got married in 2001, we were still newlyweds. Like the ink was still wet on our marriage certificate. And we got hit with the blow that he was diagnosed with cancer.
Wow. Okay.
And the cancer that he had was so aggressive that they put the radiation in his body. And so he was literally radioactive.
Wow.
And just trying to navigate that space as a newlywed, and just being hit with that diagnosis, not being able to hug them, to hold them in such a vulnerable moment in our marriage, I began writing. And writing became my protection. It helped me to navigate my emotions, to manage moments. It helped me to organize appointments, and it helped me. My pen became my friend.
Wow.
And so journaling really, it opened my eyes to the power of writing. And so it was through that experience that from that moment on, I committed myself to writing on a regular basis.
Okay.
It was another pivotal moment was during the pandemic. You saw a lot of people go through some horrific things, and people's emotions were at an all-time high. Suicide was at through the roof.
Yeah.
Because people were having a hard time navigating life. Life was life.
Yeah.
It was coming at all angles.
Yeah.
And I began to understand the power in writing. And when I began to teach other people about the power of writing and journaling, God specifically spoke to me about the weight of it, because we always hear about, to speak the word and to declare the word. But when Jesus was tempted in the wilderness by the enemy, Jesus' clapback was, "It is written."
Yes.
And so it gave me the weight and to understand the weight of writing. And so everything that I used to work for a doctor that said, if it's not written down, it didn't. Like it,
I come back in the same thing. Like, no.
Yes. And so if you go somewhere, you got to have proof. And the proof is on paper, right? And I began to lock into this new weapon that I found, because I'm happy to say that 23 years later, my husband and I are still happily married, and he's cancer free.
Oh, hallelujah. Yes.
I attribute, our faith, but also just being able to navigate that space with my pen and paper, because again, diagnoses can rip a marriage, can do, damage to relationships. And I was just determined as a new wife that I had to put boots on the ground soon as we got married. And I just remember always flushing out everything that was happening through my pen and paper.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I appreciate you sharing just the power of the tool that was provided for you and how you took advantage of that to navigate many different challenges, whether it was your husband's diagnosis, the impact on your marriage, or your COVID in general, or even
Yeah.
still now today, how you're utilizing that to help other women in just pushing through utilizing a resource that God
Absolutely.
provided
Absolutely.
for you.
I've learned through my certification that writing actually, um, there are emotions that, or experiences or traumas that subliminally we don't even realize get
You,
trapped in our body. And writing is a release. Writing, it improves your mood. And a lot of people have the misconception that when you write, you got to write a book every time you sit down to do it, but it doesn't have to be that. It's so many forms of journaling. There's so many methods. There's art journaling. There's audio journaling.
mhm.
There is drawing therapy and journaling. There is so many techniques that are out there, and I help my clients pick the one that suits them the best, but also introduce them to new ways, digital journaling. There are so many paths that people can use when it comes to write, and it is actually, it is therapy.
Yeah.
It is therapy.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, definitely a therapeutic tool, and you're helping women just to see how they utilize that tool.
Yes.
So tell me, what advice would you give to other women like yourself who want to bring their faith along with them in their professional lives more openly?
So one thing I would say is balancing your faith and ambition begins with surrender.
Mm,
Ambition, drives us to achieve, but our faith anchors us into why we achieve. So during my journey, I've learned that true success isn't measured by titles or income. It's measured by impact
yeah,
and integrity. So, when my ambition starts to rev up and go ahead of grace, I have to pause
yeah,
and ask, is this building purpose or am I just doing an assignment? So again, journaling helps me to filter everything and helps me to recalibrate. So I would say definitely surrender and always take everything to God in prayer. I mean,
yeah,
literally everything. Because sometimes we feel like, oh, this, I got it. No, you're
no,
going to get down the road and
right.
realize you need a AAA truck. So you got to spend time thinking you got it on your own. Like God is literally the GPS. And
Hmm.
here's the guiding force. And to be honest, out here in these entrepreneur streets, I don't want to do
Yeah,
this without God.
yeah.
So